Good morning, everybody. No, so today's presentation, we are going to discuss about what is research design. So when people first hear the term research design, no, it's easy to imagine something like creative, like drawing, styling, or making project look visually appealing. So it almost sounds like researchers are choosing fonts or arranging layouts. So well, that idea is funny, but it is actually or completely off. So research design no, is not about making things look good. It's about making things work properly. So basically, it is the plan behind a study, the blueprint that guides how questions are answered, how data are gathered, and how conclusions are formed. So basically, without research design, research would be likely chaotic. It's like trying to build a house without a plan. So what makes it interesting Magulo, is that research design changes depending on the goal. Sometimes the goal is to explore something, sometimes to describe patterns, and sometimes to explore why something happens. So in every case, the design ensures that answers are based on evidence, not guesswork. So while it may sound like something artistic, no, research design is really about smart planning. It turns simple curiosity into a clear and reliable understanding. And that's where its real values lies. Now, moving on, no? Observations of the world may lead to research questions and theories about how the world works. For instance, political participation is a topic that political scientists try to understand. A common research question is why people chose to vote for certain presidential candidates. Is it possible that multiple theories can explain the same phenomena? So, sometimes Mangono, understanding the world starts with a simple moment of curiosity. Something feels unexpected and suddenly questions begin to form. Why did something happen? How did it turn out that way? In fields like political science, no, this curiosity often focuses on voting behavior, especially why people chose certain candidates. The interesting part is that there is rarely just one answer. Human decisions are complex. So basically, different theories can explain the same situation. One theory might focus on personal beliefs, another on social influence, and another on economic condition. This is what makes research exciting. It does not just accept one explanation, but explores multiple possibilities to better understand the reality. Imagine na ang school election where the least expected candidate suddenly wins. Right away, everyone start guessing why. Nga, no. Some students might say it's because they are friendly, popular, while others might argue na no, it's because their promises were better than the other candidates. And a few might even say their TikTok campaign worked. Even though everyone is talking about the same result, they are giving different explanation. So to figure out now what really influenced the outcome, you would need to ask voters, gather opinion, and look at patterns. That's where research comes. It turns all those guesses into clearer and more reliable answers. Moving on to our next slide. No? So one way to assess the validity of a theoretical explanation is to understand the research design. So research design is an action plan that guides researchers in providing evidence to support their theory. Another way to think of research design is as a blueprint. So basically, no, understanding a theory Manggol is or proving a theory is actually correct. It's not just about believing it sounds convincing. So it actually requires a clear and organized way of testing it. This is where research design comes in. So, research design is acts like a game plan that tells researchers what steps to take, what data to gather, and how to use that very data to support or challenge a theory. So, basically, without it, research would be messy and unreliable. It's like trying to prove a point without any structure. So thinking of it as a blueprint makes it easier to understand. It is the guide that ensures everything is built properly from the start to finish. So imagine lang you are trying to prove that students perform better when they study in groups. You cannot just simply assume na it is true. So basically, kailangan mo one plan how to prove your point. So you decide how many students to observe, how to compare group study versus solo study. So you also have to know how to measure performance. That is your plan in research design. If done properly, it helps you gather solid evidence instead of just merely guesses nga. Solo groups that one siya, mas perform sila better. So, once ma-conceptualize na nimo siya and once ma-utilize na nimo ang imong plans, making your conclusions becomes more trustworthy and convincing. Next, to our slide. Suppose you were interested in the outcome of the 2016 presidential elections, US presidential election. In 2016, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were the candidates for the respective parties. Clinton represented the Democrats and Donald Trump represented the Republican. So, Clinton was the heavily favored candidate with many national polls predicting she would win. While she did actually receive the most vote, the popular vote. Donald Trump, however, won the most electoral vote to become the 45th president of the United States. So, how might you go about understanding the result of the election? To proceed, no, a researcher must try to figure out the purpose of the research that will be conducted. So ultimately, the type of design will then be determined by its purpose. So there are three purposes. Three such purposes of researches are exploration, description, and explanation. So unexpected outcomes magod in elections, such as the candidate winning without having the highest number of total votes in the United States, no, clearly show why research design is important. Actually, kining kuan man kana national poll is no kuan man kana surprise ato, especially the last presidential election. So going back, so why research design is important in understanding real world events. In the United States now, the president is not chosen by simple popular vote like that of the Philippines. So but through electoral college system. Apologies. So where each state has a set of number of electoral votes. Voters choose electors, and in most states, whoever wins the majority in that state get all its electoral vote. Mana siya gitawag og winner takes all system. So, because of this system now, a candidate can win the presidency by securing enough electoral vote from key states, even if another candidate has more votes nationwide. Situation like this naturally raise question and push researcher to investigate how and why such outcomes occur. So, this is where research design becomes essential to properly understand election results. First is a researcher must first decide the purpose of the study. So if the goal of the study is exploratory, the researcher may begin by identifying factors such as state by state voting patterns or differences in voter turnout. If the goal is descriptive, the researcher would organize and present data showing how electoral votes were distributed compared to popular vote. So if the goal is explanatory, the researcher would analyze how the structure of the electoral college system itself influenced the final outcome. So the design of the research now changes depending on what the researcher aims to find, showing that research design is closely tied to purpose. So in this way, the U.S. presidential election, not just the U.S. presidential election, actually serves as a clear example of how research design helps make sense of complex and sometimes confusing results instead of relying on surface level interpretations. So research design provides a step by step plan to gather evidence and explain what really happened. It allows researchers to move from simply noticing an unusual outcome to fully understanding the mechanism behind it, making their conclusions more accurate, logical, and reliable. For the last part of my discussion, exploratory research seeks to understand an issue, trying to figure out what is going on. So, whereas exploratory research may assist researchers in identifying the many variables, while descriptive research can expand on this by collecting additional information on these variables. So, descriptive research builds upon an exploratory research to provide further information about a phenomenon. Descriptive research can provide information about relationships between identified variables, often called correlational research. Exploratory and descriptive research provide answers to what. Explanatory research seeks to explain why. So explanatory research goes further than just explaining the relationship between variables and providing predictions. It tells us which variables likely led to a certain outcome. So, in understanding the three types of research becomes much clearer when seen in real situations. So imagine a sudden drop in student attendance in a school. So at first walay nakabalo anong nahitabo ni siya, why it is happening. So the first purpose is exploratory research. So it begins by asking questions in gathering initial ideas. Maybe students are sick, maybe there are transportation problems, sa nagmahal ng gasolina, or maybe they are losing interest sa eskwelahan. So at this stage, the goal is to simply figure out what might be the reason or what might be going on. So after identifying the possible factors, descriptive design research takes over by collecting data. The school might check attendance records, survey students, and analyze patterns. So they may discover that the absences are higher on certain days among specified grades level. So this stage help describe what is happening and shows relationships such as students living farther away being absent more often. Finally, explanatory research goes deeper to find the real cost. The school might discover that a new transportation policy or mahalang gasolina made it harder for students to get to school, which directly led to increased absences. So at this point now, the researcher does not just describe or the situation, they explain why it happened and helps guide solution. So that conclude the first part of our discussion. The next discussion will give a detailed information with regards to research design. Thank you, everyone.
Now let's proceed to the types of designs, the experimental and non-experimental designs. In political science, the gold standard is an experimental design. An experimental design can help determine the effect of the independent variable or the treatment on the dependent variable or the outcome because the treatment can be isolated as the likely cause. Comparisons are made between the experimental group and the control group to see if the outcomes are different, because random assignment ensures that the two groups are the same and the only difference is the treatment. Researchers can make the conclusion that the difference in the outcomes of the group is likely due to the treatment. Because of these factors, an experimental design is best suited for the purposes of explanatory research to establish causality. So an experimental design, it is also considered as the gold standard in research because it can show the cause and effect of the causality. So the independent variable mo ni siya ang treatment sa experimental design. It is the factor nga ang researcher kay magmanipulate. In the dependent variable mo ni siya ang outcomes. It is the result being measured. While the experimental group mo ni siya ang makareceive og treatment and the control group dili ni siya makareceive og treatment. To help with understanding research design, it is common to utilize notation to provide a visual depiction of the design. We will utilize the following notation as borrowed from Trockim and Donnelly in 2005. So as you can see, there's a box. Ang O is the observation, the X is the treatment, the two O's on the other side is the group 1 and the group 2, and the 2R on the other side is the selection into groups, the random and the non-random. So, ang NR mo ni siya ang random. Ang NR mo ni siya ang non-random. So, to the random assignment, it increases the internal validity because it reduces bias pag random treatment. The R is the participants that randomly assigned to groups. The NR participants are assigned without randomness. So, the non-experimental design, it is the researchers do not randomly assign participants. They observe into existing groups. So for example, comparing voting behavior between urban and rural voters without assigning them. These designs are used but weaker for proving causality. So, the random assignment or the R, participants are randomly divided into two groups, the group 1 and the group 2. The group 2, mo ni siya ang random assignment that helps to make the groups similar and fair. Mo nang kinahanglan siya nga two groups kay para makuan ka nang ma-compare. So in the first observation, the researchers measure something before the treatment. This is called the pretest. Treatment is the X. So for example, a researcher wants to test a new study method. The experimental is it uses the study method. The control method or the control group, it uses the normal way. So after the exam, the researchers compares the score. If the experimental group scores higher, the new method usually helps. So if ang experimental group kay nakascore na siya og higher, mas kuan kanang mas makatabang na noon sila or kato nga method kay dakong tabang sa ila inana. So the group 1 receives the treatment. Ang group 2 kay munay wala naka-receive of treatment kay control group man sila or muna sila may kanang gi-compare. I-compare na sila sa group 1 para makakuha ka og kuha kag answer sa imong experiment. Second observation, the researchers measure the outcome again after the treatment. Mo ni siya ang ginatawag nga post-test. Ang passage of time, the arrow shows the time passes between the first observation and the second. So ang goal ani sa researchers kay to compare the final results of the two groups. If ang group 1 changes more than sa group 2, the treatment probably caused the change. So another example, imagine testing a voter education program. Ang group 1 kay gets the voter education program, mo ni siya ang experimental or ang naka-receive siya sa treatment. The group 2 does not get the program, wala ni siya naka-receive og treatment. So ang researchers kay i-measure niya the voting knowledge before the program, mo ni siyang observation sa group 1, and the voting knowledge after the program, mo ni siyang observation pod. If the group 1 improves more, the program worked. The selection of individuals into groups is denoted by R or random assignment or NR non-random assignment. Observations are denoted as O and X is the treatment. One line of notation will refer to a single group. Two lines denote two different groups. Three lines denote three groups and so on. The notation from left to right denotes the passage of time. Using this notation, we can generally classify designs into experimental and non-experimental. There are three crucial components: random assignment, manipulation of the treatment, and the existence of a control group. Generally, there are two groups, an experimental group and a control group. Experimental group will be administered a treatment while the control group will not be administered a treatment. Control group is supposed to be what the experimental group would look like if the experimental group was not given the treatment. So there are three components man. First, we have the random assignment. The random assignment participants are placed into group randomly to make fairness and the results are more reliable. Next, we have the manipulation of the treatment. The researchers control and applies the treatment to test what happens. And lastly, we have the existence of the control group. So kaning a group, there's a group of people who do not receive the treatment, so the researchers can compare the result. Mo ni siya nga if naay experimental group, kinahanglan pod nga naay control group. Comparisons are then made between the two groups using pre-test and post-test to determine the effect of the treatment on outcomes. Random assignment refers to the placement of cases into control and experimental groups in an unbiased manner such that the likelihood of any case being placed into groups is exactly the same. The pre-test establishes a baseline, allowing us to understand how things are before the treatment is implemented, and the post-test provides us with information about outcomes after the treatment. If this sounds familiar, it is because an experiment in political science is similar to an experiment performed in a science lab. So, it combines the two designs, the pre-test and the post-test. Pre-test, mo ni siya post-test experiment, and the post-test, mo ni siya ang experiment. Experimental designs can vary in relation to the classic example presented. One variation of the classic example is not administering a pre-test. This can be due to fears that taking a pre-test can affect the results, or it just may be that a researcher is unable to administer a pre-test. This makes it difficult to attribute the varying outcomes to the treatment, but can still allow conclusions about causality because a control group does exist. So meaning of those symbols or the symbols kay R is the random assignment. People are randomly put into groups. The O is the observation or the measurement of the test or survey. The X is the treatment. It is the program or factor being tested. So there are four groups according to the example. The group 1, the ROXO, Muna siya ang nakadawat, muna siya ang pre-test, the O. The X is the get the treatment, ilang nadawat nga treatment, and the O is the post-test. The group 2 is the ROO. The pre-test is the O, wala sila nadawat nga treatment, and the post-test is O. Group 3 is the RXO, walay pre-test, pero naay treatment, and the post-test is the O. And group 4 kay R ug O ra. Walay pre-test, walay treatment, pero naay post-test. So nganong ang researcher kay gigamit man ni siya nga design? It is because this design helps researchers check two things. First, magamit ba ang treatment or nag-work ba ang treatment? Ilang i-compare ang treated groups o ang non-treated groups. 2. Did the pretest affect the results? Sometimes taking a test before treatment can influence behavior. So, using four groups help researchers separate these effects. So, for example, researcher wants to test if a new teaching method improves students' scores. So, some students can take og test before learning, ang uban kay wala. So, some students uses the new teaching method, ang uban kay normal method ra lang gigamit. So, at the end, everyone takes the final test. So, ilan ang i-compare ang four groups, makita na dayon sa researcher if naabay kabag-uhan sa upat ka groups being tested. If ang teaching method kay nag-works, if the pretest change during the student's learning. So, if ang teaching method nag-works, mutoy nakita nila during their experiment. Another variation to the classic experiment is the introduction of groups beyond the traditional two groups that tries to address the effect of a pretest on the outcomes. This variation is known as a Solomon four-group design. As the name indicates, there are four groups. Two are experimental groups and two are control groups. One experimental group and one control group will have a pretest and post-test, and remaining groups will not be pretested. In this way, comparisons can be made between the two pairs, and it can be determined as to whether the pretest had an effect on the results. Non-experimental design may lack random assignment into groups, the ability of the researcher to control the treatment, a control group, or all of these characteristics of an experiment. Ethical concern may lead to the implausibility of implementing an experiment. To determine the effect of a treatment, a researcher may decide randomly to assign individuals into a control group and an experimental group. The experimental group receives a treatment that could cure a serious illness, but those in the control group who would benefit from the same treatment are denied it. So there are two groups. The group 1, the NROXO, there people are placed in the group without random selection. The researchers measure something before the treatment or the pre-test. The group receives the treatment or malagito ag X. Researchers measure the outcome again after treatment or the post-test. The group 2 or the NROO, people are also placed without random selection. They take the pre-test, they do not receive the treatment, and researchers measure the outcome again. Muna to ang post-test. The researchers compare the change in both groups. If the treated group improves more, the treatment may have caused the change. However, because the groups were not randomly assigned, they might already be different from the start, so it is harder to prove the cause and effect. Quasi-experimental designs try to approximate experiments but lack a key component, the random assignment. For instance, in a non-equivalent two-group comparative design, cases are divided into two groups, one an experimental group and a comparison group that is meant to be like a control group. Unlike an experiment, assignment into groups is not random. It is possible that individuals self-selected into groups. In a design known as matching, cases are matched together on multiple variables with the only variation being that the treatment variable. While it may be possible to match unidentified variables, it is difficult to discern whether variables that are not observed are also evenly distributed. So as you can see on the diagram, we have the OXO. The O is the observation, the X is the treatment, and the O is the observation again, or the post-test. So first observation, it measures something before the treatment. Example, muna siyang giving test survey. The treatment is the group receives the treatment. Muna siya, nahanahatagan siya og treatment ang group. Ang second observation kay researchers measure again after the treatment. So kana na picture is only one group. Walay control group para ma-prove or para ma-compare. So man siya non-experimental design. And also weak ni siya for proving the causes and effect of causality. Another example, a teacher wants to know if a non-teaching method improves score. First, students take a test first, muna siya ang first observation. The teacher uses the method, muna siya ang treatment. Students take another test, muna siya ang second observation. If ang scores kay ni-improve, the teacher think nga ang method is helpful. Pero, dili siya certain kay there was no comparison group. This non-experimental design measures a group before and after a treatment to see if something are changed. Pero wala man tay control group para ma-compare, lisod siya nga ma-prove ang treatment sa causes or effect nga na-change. If you are trying to establish causality, experimental designs will be likely be the design of choice. Experimental designs have internal validity, thus ensuring that you can provide causal conclusions about an independent variable's effect on an outcome. When it is not feasible, and the reasons as to your research study are not establishing causality, but instead gathering information, non-experimental studies that do not necessarily require random assignment or a control group will serve your research goal just as well.
Moving on to the components of design. Understanding these components will help you to build on existing design so you can create blueprints that are specific to your research. Sampling is an important component to consider because it can be difficult to obtain data on every single case in the population. How your sample is created and who is part of your sample have implications for the conclusions you can make about your results. An important component of research design is determining who will be part of the study, the number of cases, and how cases will be selected into the study. So there are two steps. The first step is to determine what populations you are interested in. The populations refers to all cases that could be part of the study. For instance, if you are interested in why people vote for certain candidates, the populations of interest is all adults who are 18 years or older and are registered to vote. The next step would be to try to figure out the number of cases to include that will still provide a convincing argument to support a theory. So according to the law of large numbers, we do not necessarily need to include every single case to provide a convincing argument. Rather than the entire populations, the study will likely be based on a sample. So the law of large numbers tells us that when we provide a large enough sample that is also representative of the population, it would lead to the results that are close to the results if we collected data on all the cases in the populations. So in other words, sampling is an important part of the research design because it allows researchers to study a smaller group instead of the entire populations. So the way the sample is chosen affects the accuracy of the results. So tungod gani ani, mupili lang ang mga researchers o gamay na group or samples nga nagrepresent sa whole populations. Kay kung and then kung sakto ang pagpili sa sample, so mas accurate and reliable na dayon ang results sa research. And then the first step explains that identifying the populations, which includes that all individuals that relevant to the study. And then the next step refers to the researchers determine the sample size based on the law of large numbers. A sufficiently large and well-selected sample can represent the population without studying everyone. So a key concept in sampling is representatives. So which means that the sample reflects the characteristics of population. So to achieve this, the researchers use a sampling frame, or it is a complete list of all members of the population. So in summary, the effective sampling involves identifying the population, selecting an appropriate sample size, and ensuring the representatives and using a proper sampling frame. The complete sampling frame is a list of all those in the population. This list might contain information about the characteristics of the populations we are interested in. So there are two ways to sample cases. One of which, if done properly, will produce representative samples, and one that will not reflect the representatives. So probability sampling will produce samples that are more likely to be representative of the populations as opposed to non-probability sampling. Probability sampling requires the use of random selections to place cases into a sample. Example of probability samplings are the simple random sampling, the stratified sampling, and clustered sampling. In contrast, the non-probability sampling uses non-random process to select cases to be part of the sample. Example of this include the convenience sampling, the quota sampling, and the snowball sampling. So, in other words, there are two main types of sampling, the probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling focuses or uses random selections, making it more likely to produce a representative sample. In contrast, non-probability sampling uses non-random methods and may not accurately represent the populations. So in other words, ang probability kay random ang pagpili aron mas mahimong sakto ang result. While ang non-probability kay dili random ang pagpili, mao nga dili kaayo kasaligan ang result kumpara sa sa probability sampling. So under sa probability sampling, ang simple random sampling gives every individual an equal chance of being selected, making it the most reliable method. Ano siya ang simple. While ang stratified sampling ensures that the sample reflects key characteristics of the populations by dividing it into groups. On the other hand, ang cluster sampling takes into considerations that a simple random sample may not be feasible because the population may be quite dispersed. So if your population is all US adults who are registered to vote, it might be difficult to acquire a list of every registered voter and then randomly select individuals to be part of your survey. Under the probability sampling are the convenience sampling, the quota sampling, and the snowball sampling. So convenience sampling refers to selecting cases that are available. It is almost like not sampling that at all because there are no criteria to be part of the sample other than being part of the selected populations and a willingness to be part of the sample. Next is the quota sampling, refers to the selecting cases according to a quota or a set of number of cases. Researchers may set a fixed number and go about creating a samples that will meet the number. And then the snowball sampling is initial cases are identified to be part of the sample. It can be one case or it can be more. So these initial individuals will then provide you with referrals of other individuals who could be part of a sample. Eventually, the number of cases you have will increase through referrals of individuals who you are able to get to be part of the sampling. So, in other words, ang convenience sampling daw kay selects participants who are easily available, while ang quota sampling kay mo ni siya ang involve selecting a fixed number of participants, sometimes based on selected specific characteristics, while ang snowball sampling relies on initial participants referring others to join the study. So, in creating our samples, there are additional rules of thumb to follow. One general rule is that if the population being studied is small, equal to, or less than 100, the best strategy is to include all the cases. Another general rule is to always aim for a larger sample because the non-response or not receiving a reply from a case is like is a likely possibility. So as a general rule, if the population is small, 100 or fewer, it is the best to include all the members. So researchers should also aim for a larger sample size to account for possible non-responses. Probability sampling. Simple random sampling is argued to be the best approach in selecting a sample. So in a simple random sample, each case has an equal chance of being selected to be part of the study. So through simple random sampling, your sample is much more likely to be reflected of your populations. On the other hand, the stratified sampling is similar to random sampling, but there may exist a concern over what the sample looks like. So, there may be a concern about the inclusion or exclusion of certain characteristics to ensure the proportional representation or ensuring the sample has similar characteristics to that of those in the populations. So the stratified sampling will take into consideration such characteristics and ensure that the sample looks like the population. So therefore, we need to know these characteristics relative to the populations before selecting the sampling. Moving on to the components of design and observations. So a critical component of research design is to consider how and when observations will be obtained, or in other words, the data collection. So researchers must take into considerations the way data will be collected as well as the timing of data collection. So data collections method can fall under primary sources or secondary sources. So data from secondary sources refers to existing data collected by someone else. And then researchers do not need to collect the data again and will instead compile the variables they need for their studies. So observations or data collections are a key part of research design. So researchers must decide how and when data will be collected to ensure the accurate result. So data can come from the primary sources, which are collected directly by the researchers, and then the secondary sources, which are the existing data gathered by others. So using the secondary data saves time since researchers only need to select relevant variables for their study. So there are examples of secondary data sources, which include the American National Election Studies or the ANES. It is a collaboration between Stanford University and the University of Michigan. So it provides researchers with information about such topics as voting behavior and electoral participations. So readily available secondary data source. And then the General Social Survey or the GSS. The GSS is collected by the National Research Center and the University of Chicago. So the data covers topics that might be of concern to social scientists. So for instance, the psychological well-being and morality are topics the GSS collects data on. So the ANES, which provides information on voting behavior, and on the other hand, the General Social Survey, which covers topics such as social attitudes, morality, and psychological well-being. So, in summary, choosing the right data source and timing is essential for effective research. Secondary data sources can be useful and help save researchers time and money. However, the researcher is constrained by the topics collected by the institutions collecting the data. So the data available might not necessarily be helpful in answering your research questions. So you might have to collect your own data. So the primary sources refers to the original data collected by the researchers. Data can be obtained through the multiple approach. One way to obtain data is to create and administer a survey. So surveys, on the other hand, often contain the close-ended questions, limiting the responses that can be provided, while the interviews are another way to acquire data. In interviews, questions are often open-ended, allowing the cases the opportunity to provide detailed answers which go beyond the limited responses available on a survey. On the other hand, a one-shot survey is deemed a cross-selectional study, whereas the latter would be considered a longitudinal survey. So in a cross-selectional study, observations are taken at a single point in time, while a longitudinal study will have multiple observations over a specified length of time with the same individuals. So longitudinal studies can be either panels or cohort studies. So cases in a cohort study are likely to share characteristics or experiences. So it means that the secondary data sources are useful because they save time and resources. However, they may be limited since the researchers can only use the data already collected, which may not fully answer their research questions. So in such cases, researchers may need to gather the primary data, which is original data collected directly from the study. So the primary data can be collected through methods such as surveys and interviews. So surveys usually contain a close-ended questions with limited response options, while ang interviews are the open-ended questions that allow for more detailed and in-depth answers. So in terms of timing, a cross-selectional study collects data at a single point in time, while ang longitudinal study collects data from the same participants over a period of time. Ang longitudinal studies may include panel studies or cohort studies where participants often share the common characteristics or experiences. So in summary, researchers may choose an appropriate data, sources, and methods based on their research objectives.